Good afternoon, my friends. The doctor is in the house. Welcome back to another episode of To Your Health with Dr. G. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well with their friends, their families, and their loved ones. My name is Dr. Mark Gomez, your host of the show. Today, we're going to be talking about fostering healthy work relationships, a topic that is just going to be great and something that really is important to us on a daily basis because we got to work. But we're going to talk about that in a little more detail. So welcome back, everybody, to the show. Those of you that are new to the show, what we do each week is I gather a group of my expert colleagues, and we talk about a topic. Today's topic is just going to be so personal because again, we talk about how we work and what it takes to get through work. And imagine the scenario. Say you're working with the same person for the next 30 years because you're a young person, and why not work? Talk about that in a little more detail, but again, fostering healthy work relationships. So again, welcome to the show. My name is Dr. Mark Gomez. I'm a board certified internist practicing out in the western suburbs of Chicago. You can check me out on my website, www.drmarkgomez.com. You can also check me out on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. My handle is @toyourhealth, Dr. G. So welcome everybody back to the show. This is our 16th corporate wellness plans, and today I want to take it to a deeper level because it really comes to the people, and it's the people that make the changes. And when it boils down to things with your company and your organizations, it's the people that allow for success. And so we're going to talk about healthy relationships, but of course, before we talk about healthy relationships, let me hit you with a quick disclaimer. The content of To Your Health with Dr. G is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and that the content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, and/or treatment. Further details can be found at www.toyourhealthwithdrg.com/disclaimer. All right, guys. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in again. We welcome our return listeners back, our new listeners to the program. You guys are going to be in for a treat. The panel that we have today is #fierce. I say that every week, but it's true. The panel is always #fierce, and you will always have fierce #fierce guests on this show. And that's what we're all about. Again, this show is all about creating opportunity for people to engage in healthy behaviors, healthy lifestyles. And today we're talking about making those relationships at work. Get to use the same word 2 times in a row. Make relationships work.
Yeah.
All right. So what I want to do today is give you just a little quick update on this topic. Again, kind of opening remarks, and I'm going to introduce my panel. And really what I think about this, when you're looking at fostering healthy work relationships, again, the success of any organization boils down to the people, the work relationships within that company. And this will allow companies to either endure and thrive, or conversely, to struggle and potentially fail. So we're going to talk about that with the panel here. They're going to break it down from a person level. I'm going to add some little health type stuff in there in a little bit because it is a little bit of a medical show. And as an internist, I got to talk about some of the things that I see. But the panel today is really, they're in it. They're in the trenches with people, with relationships, and seeing some of the successes that we have in the work environment and also some of the challenges that we have. So we're going to talk about it. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guests. And again, the panel's #fierce. So my first guest, she and I recently connected, and we connected actually through a colleague of mine, actually a colleague of my father's. So my dad worked for Allstate Insurance Company for many, many years, and there's a colleague of his, and he used to come out to the house and everything, and he connected us together. And ever since, I was like, once he told me about her, I was like, okay, I got to get her on the show because she is really epitomizes not only from wearing from an employer's hat, but also an employee too, and she understands people. And so I want to introduce my first guest, Dr. Susie Francis Best, PsyD MBA. She's an HR Inclusive Diversity Lead Consultant. She's a ERG Program Manager at Allstate Insurance Company. She's also founder and president of Thrive Group International, LLC. Dr. Best, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. G.
All right. I'm so excited to finally meet you because, again, we've only talked on the phone, but we know the kind of the same people. So I'm so happy to kind of connect with you. So why don't you just introduce yourself about, like, where did you do some of your training? Because when I was really really psyched up when I literally found out that you're a clinician by training. And interesting, when I talked to people at Allstate, I was thinking, oh, they're just probably going to have somebody who's not really clinically trained, but you have a significant clinical background. So this is very perfect. So tell us about your training. Where did you train at? And then also about your maybe a few opening comments on how today's theme works for you.
Sure. So briefly, thank you for having me on the show. This is so fun. I love listening to podcasts, so it's great to be a part of the show. And I appreciate a doctor getting out of the office and bringing health concepts to other people.
Absolutely.
So thanks for the opportunity. Briefly, my training is really a broad-based training. I come from St. Croix, Virgin Islands, which is very near and dear to my heart. I still say I'm from there, even though I've been here a long time. And I started off working in social work in Humboldt Park. Because I wanted to work within the Spanish-speaking community similar to my culture. And I worked there. And then I went back and got my doctorate in psychology and worked with small children, 0 to 5. I did Head Start programs that helped me get through school. I worked at the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center and did my doctoral work there, trying to find ways to build empathy with juvenile delinquents. And then I worked with the VA North Shore, so up near Allstate, and so rounded out my practice. So I truly have from the little ones all the way up. And then I ran a counseling center, Cornerstone Counseling Center of Chicago, for 13 and a half years. So I was the CEO there. And so I did both the broad range of, we had a residency program, so training the next generation, but also did a lot of business practices. So that's where a lot of even having to live into this. You see the clients who their work experience can make or break their life outside of their home life, but also what did I need to do to create a culture in the organization I ran so that people wanted to come to work every day. And then even as the boss that I wanted to come to work every day. And then launched on my own to do more business development and leadership development, helping leaders learn how to cultivate environments where people can thrive. And then I started working at Allstate 2 years ago, where I work within inclusive diversity, as you said, and in human resources, really helping Allstate live into its shared purpose of really empowering people to do the right thing, put people ahead of policies, and defy expectations. And Allstate wants to live into that, not just for the customer, but for its employees. And I really respect that. And our employee resource groups help with that. So that's something we'll talk more about through the questions, but I love being able to empower leaders. Our employee resource groups right now impact over 9,000 members throughout the nation. And so that helps people feel included while they're at work, and it also educates people on different populations.
Thank you for coming on today. This is exciting. Again, you're involved in a lot of the crafting of a lot of the initiatives that are out there. So you've got firsthand experience, and again, I think it's awesome having your clinical background and using that in certainly in the corporate world as well too.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on. My next guest, he and I go back a long time ago. He actually recruited me. I like laughing as I'm telling the story, but my next guest, he recruited me years ago to be the health lead for the DuPage County NAACP. And at that time, he approached me and he said, "Dr. G," I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, "Dr. G, we need you. We need you to serve and have this calling." And so, of course, and then he wagged those kind of puppy dog eyes at me. So, I couldn't say no to this story. But ever since our days of doing community engagement, we talked a lot about equity and access. Yes. And those are some key themes, even when we talk about in health. But we're just talking about that just in the community. But there's so many, that's equity access so broad, it can be applied in so many different avenues. But I joined the NAACP, helped run the health initiatives for a couple of years, and he was our president of the organization, and then we've been good friends and colleagues ever since then. So I want to welcome to the show Mr. Mario L. Lambert II. He's Director, Strategic Sales and Channel Partnerships at Populous Group. Mario, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. G.
All right, please, Mario, tell us a little bit about your background, and also tell us about how this kind of theme of fostering healthy work relationships fits into your day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. So relative to the topic, just thinking about my story and how I ended up having such a passion around healthy relationships and access and all that. When I was a kid, I moved around a lot. I went to 3 different high schools. So just think about the dynamic of that, moving around a lot and being at 3 different high schools. It challenges you to understand that you have to find a way to connect. You have to find a way to build relationships and sort of build your own access points whenever you're in new environments. So with that, went off to college and got an opportunity to work at a car dealership where they moved me around quite a bit, and I was selling cars and started doing pretty well at it while I was in school. When I was at school, I thought I wanted to go to law school. But I started selling cars. I'm like, hey, I like working with people and selling and stuff. But one of the best gifts that ever came to me, which is a big theme of what I'm going to be talking about today, and that's what we pay forward to others, is the general manager pulled me to the side and said, when you graduate, you're not going to work here. And I'm like, why not? It's going pretty well. And he said, because I think there's more for you to learn and more opportunity for you to go explore. And I want to see you go on off and do other things and tell us your story. And I took that to heart. And I walked away from that knowing that I liked being around people. I wanted to sell. I didn't have a business background or anything like that. But luckily, I fell into a great company in an industry that gave me a chance. Took a chance on a kid that had a few broken wings and wasn't necessarily perfectly crafted for that career, but I've enjoyed a pretty good career in selling human resource services. So for the past 8 years, I have been with Populous Group. It's a company that believes that everybody deserves a chance to succeed. And I firmly believe in paying everything forward that I can and surrounding myself with great people. And I'm happy to be here on the show.
Excellent. You epitomize, leading by example, and that's obviously important. And when we think about what we do in our lives, with our families and our loved ones, but also on the work front too, we want leading by example up and down the corporate ladder. And you lead by example so much in life. I mean, we've gotten to know each other on such a personal level, just the things that you're in, that you do. And I'm just inspired. I go, man, my wife and I always joke about it because Mario used to send out little messages. He put it on his Facebook account or Twitter. He'd always say, quote, thinking about that next level, end quote. And so my wife and I would be joking around. We say, man, we just looked on Facebook today and Mario has that line again, thinking about that next level. But it's really challenging us to lead by example and to live our productive lives and to inspire forward. So inspire others. And I like your line, paying it forward. So thank you for coming on to the show, Mario. My last guest, she and I got to know each other. I had to bring her back. So she was on my show in the beginning of our show, on our third show about mindfulness. And the guest, she is just an amazing person. We got to know each other a couple years ago, part of a project in the clinical setting where we were trying to integrate behavioral health services into the primary care office setting. And traditionally it had been so separate, and we kind of practice medicine. On one thing we talk about is you practice in a silo, and we try to have the integration. So we connected at that time, and when she came to meet the docs in the practice, we were just like sold. Like you're hired. Now, of course, your bosses from Linden Oaks had to make that decision themselves. But if I had anything to say, I was like, you're hired on the spot. But we've just been really good colleagues. She's taught me a lot. She's educated my patients. She's educated the staff. She's educated myself. Really opened up my eyes into behavioral health, mental health awareness, and just really understanding people. And we talk on a daily basis when we're in the clinic about things that we see. You kind of give me your take on things, I give you my take, but it's just a great relationship. So I had to have her back on the show. So here she is, Ms. Katie O'Donnell. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's also a certified alcohol and drug counselor. She is you literally wear a lot of hats, which is so great on what you do. So again, Katie O'Donnell here representing Linden Oaks Medical Group, and obviously just a good friend of mine. So thank you, Katie, for coming back on the show. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me back. It's my
right.
pleasure. I had so much fun the first time talking about mindfulness. Yeah. So coming back and really incorporating some of those same themes into that work-life balance and how to foster those relationships. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about this later on in the show, but I find especially in the role I'm in right now, I'm kind of riding this balance between teaching and kind of educating a lot of people on the provider level, and then also working with other clinicians through Linden Oaks. So I'm kind of part of these two very different teams, some of whom I see face to face every day, and some of whom I connect mostly through email and phone messages. So it's pretty interesting to kind of see how in this field where burnout is so prevalent, especially in healthcare, how we can take care of ourselves first, foster those relationships with the people we see every day, and maybe if it's just interacting through emails, how you can even be more effective communicators to make sure that everyone's being supported and we're also kind of serving the purpose that we're going to work for every day.
Excellent. Thank you very much again for coming out, Katie. Again, you had to come out anyways because your office is 3 doors down from mine. So I was going to come find you anyways.
Carpool all the way
I know.
over.
Excellent. Well, now that you guys have met the panel, we're going to let's get into this because this is a very important topic that affects all of us. So what I always do is I introduce this topic as the chief complaint. And so the chief complaint in health is when a person comes into the office and they are there for that particular reason. So we want to talk about the chief complaint. And the question of the hour is, how do we make these relationships thrive at work? So I'm going to ask the first question to Dr. Bess, because why not? Because she's sitting right next to me on my right. But no, I'm really excited to have the panel really give us their thoughts on things. So here's kind of my first question for you. Talk about how relationships are. I mentioned in my opening comments that it's the people that allow for that success. But can you expand on that a little bit more? How do relationships serve as a catalyst or maybe deter from an organization reaching its goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's a really important one we don't always look at. I think that, in my working in corporate America and what we look at that, yes, you need to meet your bottom line goals, and relationship success is not one of them on any corporate report. However, an employee's ability to, as you said earlier, we sometimes spend more of our waking hours with our coworkers and at work than we do with our family. So more and more studies have shown that people who enjoy being at work, who like being at work, who feel a sense of belonging at work, are more committed to the company. So they're likely to stay on longer. They're likely to go the extra mile to get things done. And they're also likely to do what at Allstate we call bring their whole selves to work. So they're able to feel this sense of self and pride. Which also means that when the company's in a sense of innovating, they're gonna bring more ideas, and with those ideas may come a solution to the company. So I think it's really integral to have healthy relationships, not just laterally with your coworkers. Part of what our employee resource groups do is mentoring. So even having relationships, one outside of your area of work, at a place as large as an Allstate or companies that are pretty big, where it's more than 50 people at the company, you can kind of get feeling lost in your little pod or in your silo, where when you have a reason to go out and hear from another leader or an outside speaker or do an activity together, we do a lot of community activity, you feel like you're a part of something bigger. That's what I hear a lot of employees say is like, when we, the fire that happened near Northbrook, where the apartment building burnt down, we got together, and we got together so fast that they actually sent us an email that said, actually, there will be no one in the parking lot taking donations because we've far exceeded our goals. Wow. Well, people consistently say, you know what, I know my work is meaningful when I hear from the customer, but when we go out there and make that difference, when we know we're giving millions of dollars away in the community, I know I'm making even more of a difference. That helps people end up with company pride, and they bring their positive self, their best self to work, which, like I said already, helps them then have the types of ideas or work ethic that will help the company thrive. When morale is down, it can pull an entire company down, because employees have been proven at times when morale is down to withhold important information from the company on customer feedback or ideas they have of why something isn't working or a root cause problem. And that can cause the company to have detrimental effects because no one feels that they're valued or trusted. So why should they bother?
It's interesting when you mention about sometimes one person can bring things down, and certainly in a larger organization, that can still have, that one individual can have a it can have a tremendous effect. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we think about, well, it's only the smaller organizations where like maybe one person brings it down, but we tend to forget about that. The larger organizations can still be vulnerable as well too. Do you want to comment a little bit more about that?
Well, or Mario, it sounds ahead. Like he was really getting in there. So you might have an example.
Yeah. So professionally, I help companies attract talent, retain talent, develop talent. So I deal with this firsthand. and realize that from a recruiting standpoint, clients are all the time, they're very careful about who they select, or they at least should be. But how do they get to the point where they select somebody that is detrimental to the team, where they've aligned somebody that doesn't believe what the company believes, or doesn't subscribe to the goals and ambitiousness of the organization and so on? It's probably because they're not openly talking about it. They don't have a spirit of candor in their organization. They're lacking trust. So you have a lot of people operating with the ego, and egos show up, and we all have egos. I mean, if you look at the nature of why we go to work, if we are an employee, we're there to get a check. We're there to take care of our families, and we have our personal needs. But we have to somehow balance this natural ego that we have with a belief system that it's about something bigger than you. And if you can connect the organization to the person's heart, to where they show up every day and not as focused on their ego-centric needs, then you might be at a better place. So I'm going to put that back into the how they communicate their values, how they demonstrate them, do they walk the walk, and so on. So I put I'm a positive guy, man. I put this positive spin on the detriment, but
definitely are positive. But it comes back down to, again, leading. Everybody can lead by example, but the culture, and it's interesting because you think about the bigger companies that are out there that have that culture, they exude it through their pores. The Googles, they're happy. I mean, Papa's Group, you guys are happy. I see you guys high-fiving on your video and everything. They're high-fiving. So again, the egos are checked at the door, and you're really about something that's bigger than you. So thank you for that commentary. Katie, let me ask you this. We talk about some of the stress, and you mentioned a little bit of things about burnout. What are some of the kind of signs you see? You're a clinician as well too. What are some kind of signs that you see of people? Maybe they are, and they tell you a lot of their story. They tell you about their family health, but they also tell you about their work health, their work relationships. What are some kind of symptoms that somebody may come in with when you see someone that's having burnout or anxiety or stress? What are kind of the things that they're telling you about?
Oh, great question. Definitely something that I see on a regular basis, especially people who are working full-time jobs and really trying to find that balance. So really with burnout it's an emotional, mental, and physical just kind of exhaustion. And this happens over a long period of time with endured stress. And kind of the difference between stress and these burnout factors is stress kind of elevates emotional response. It kind of can help promote maybe activity, it can be proactive. Think about if you're sitting down for a test you studied for, that adrenaline's rushing and you're going to be very focused. Now with burnout, you have that opposite. It's kind of that flat affect. There's very restricted range of emotion because people kind of have given up. That hopelessness is there, that helplessness. So a lot of symptoms that we see in depression, we often see with people who have burnout at work. And really it comes down to, I'm not making a difference in my job. What I'm doing is not worth it. I don't have value. So what's the point? And a lot of times it can lead to some really serious side effects. Even thoughts of taking one's own life. So it's something that doesn't just translate to, I'm not happy with my job, this stinks. It can really have more far-reaching consequences. So really when I see someone who comes in, it's usually a slow build. People kind of have this happen over a long period of time. And oftentimes if someone already has maybe a predisposition or diagnosis for anxiety or depression or another mood or anxiety disorder, they're going to be more likely to have this happen and kind of have it affect them even more. And what's hard is if there's a company that doesn't promote this idea that burnout is real and mental health is something that we can talk about without that stigma, they're going to be less likely to say something. So if we're able to kind of make that a conversation that is okay to have, and really, so even through this radio program, it's going to have people be a lot more comfortable starting that dialogue. So one of the big things I see, like I said, is that fatigue. So that exhaustion that comes in when people come and talk about work, they talk about wanting to feel appreciated, want to feel value, even that passion that some of my other panelists were discussing. When you feel like you're going in and making a difference and there's a sense of purpose, it's a lot easier to show up and want to put in those longer hours or go the extra mile or kind of come up with some of those proactive ideas. So a lot of the times I see people who kind of felt like they're just another cog in a system. And I've seen it both at a very small business level and I've seen it at a wide systematic level. So you can kind of see all those scenarios.
Let me ask you kind of like a follow-up question. How would, or this question could be to anybody on the panel, but how would somebody, if you're the employer and you're looking at your team, how do you recognize those kind of signs? And how do you not overstep maybe your bounds on making an intervention when you know something might be going on? How do you do that?
If it's okay, I can.
Yeah, please go ahead.
What I kind of notice is just making it the culture of a company that this is real. We're going to talk about it. Make sure that something like an EAP is really recognized.
Can you explain? Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain EAP?
Sorry. I know that was another one of your questions.
Yeah.
So an employee assistance program. So people know that there are resources that are funded 100% by a company where you can get either referrals for legal assistance, grief assistance, individual therapy, direction to go and get psychiatric help, or have in-house where a lot of companies will have up to about 6 complimentary sessions with an individual therapist where you can start to get that project going. And then for a lot of people, if you just have that period of time where you're being acknowledged and given a skill set, it can really make a big difference. So I've seen a lot of people who, even when I work with individually, if they've never had any experience with therapy or recognition that this is real and this is happening, they feel better and they have tools to go and be more productive, and they can build that mastery by teaching those tools to their colleagues. So I think that first step is making it something that's part of a culture. Also, if you have a rapport with someone, which goes along with how you connect with your colleagues, being able to say, hey, you know what? I noticed that you usually have a smile on your face, and you've been coming in lately, and you just don't have that smile you used to have. Like, what's been going on? Making it vulnerable. That's a huge one. When we don't feel like we can be vulnerable, all that emotion gets pushed down. And the more we repress an emotion, it's going to come out somehow. And that's when you end up crying at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday in Jewel.
Mm-hmm. I see that kind of stuff all the time. Certainly as a primary care physician, being on the front lines of things, I certainly see a lot of the other physical manifestations of burnout. And we can see that in the form of weight gain, hair loss. We can see blood sugar levels go up. You can see blood pressure levels go up. Certainly fatigue. You can see a lot of different stuff, insomnia. I mean, and then of course the relationships on the home front, because a lot of times the reality is a lot of times we have to bring a lot of work home. I know sometimes I have to bring work home and I hate it. But I also want to get home and see my kids in a timely manner. So I have to do it late at night. And, so I can be burning myself out at the same time too. But let me ask this question. Let me ask this question to Dr. Best. There are certainly some barriers out there for people to, a lot of people may know that they actually have that program, an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but sometimes people might feel like, well, I don't want to let my guard down and utilize that service. So a lot of times I imagine those resources are underutilized. Would you agree or disagree, or would you say maybe they are utilized and we just don't know about it too much?
From actually, again, just what studies have shown is they unfortunately are underutilized, or we forget. I loved what Katie said. I would agree with everything she said, that culture is key. I think that there is so much, like the super high level. It's going to be hard to have a conversation with your employee about what you're noticing in them negatively if you never have check-ins with them. And as much as we may take for granted, we may be a healthy company. I mean, you've got to have a healthy company culture. And if my boss is talking to me at least twice a month on, even for a half hour, Susie, what's going well, what's not going well, here's a professional development, here's a personal development, it's a really natural addition to that conversation. But there are companies out there that are so work-oriented that a manager might go months without having any conversation with their employee. And so how do you bridge that gap? You've got to go to that higher level and first address company culture of develop conversations, create a way, whether you're we're seeing a lot of workforce go remote. So how do you stay connected even to the things we're saying with remote? Because I think a lot of people, young or old, think, oh, working from home will be amazing. And I think it'll be wonderful. And now we've even got people going, when I do join the meetings online, but I see that you guys get to talk after the meeting and I just click and have my parrot or my cat to pet,
but you're still in your pajamas though.
So there are definitely, whether it's in a smaller setting, an individual setting, or larger, I think there's more than anything shame. When it comes down to it, you can, as a company, ensure your employee that it is anonymous, but you also need to live into that. So I think some things I would want to take for granted is you've got to live into anonymity. Allstate has 2 completely different ways you can anonymously call to get certain services. So you would never have to even ask your manager for the services. And so that helps that there's 2 different ways you can do that. But being able to have that an anonymous way of reporting or disclosing that you need that help is important. But I also think that it's important to create a place, the culture again, so that a person doesn't feel shame. So we encourage our leaders to be more transparent. Why don't you go ahead and try the EAP just so you can tell your employees, you know what, I tried it and they were wonderful. That would, I think, speak volumes, as if we actually lead by example and not wait till something's a crisis. I often say, even in marriage therapy, why wait till you don't wait till your engine seizes to get an oil change. You go and you get an oil change every so many months so that your car can be maintained. It's the same. Like, hey, you've already implicitly paid for these services. Why not go to, we have this thing called Energy for Life, a class where you just focus on yourself and your personal goals. Why not take the free yoga class? Why not call up the EAP and take those 5 sessions just to say, I want to work on my goals. I want to take the next level and just take advantage so that it doesn't need to wait until there's actual awful problem, so it can eliminate the shame.
Thank you for telling us that there's really good resources out there for people. I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge our platinum level sponsor today, Phillips Eye Center. The physicians at Phillips Eye Center are committed to providing the highest quality of comprehensive eye care to our patients. They offer a wide range of ophthalmic services, including laser and surgical treatments for many diseases of the eye. Just a few of their services include surgical and medical treatment for glaucoma by our glaucoma specialists, cataract surgery, treatment of diabetic complications, including laser, treatment of macular degeneration, and treatment of dry eye syndrome. Ultimately, their goal is to diagnose, educate, and treat their patients in a respectful manner, surpassing their expectations. Phillips Eye Center has office locations in Naperville and Bolingbrook, Illinois. For more information, call area code 630-378-4799. Thanks again to Dr. Phillips and Phillips at Phillips Eye Center. So this is we're having some really good discussions, and what you guys are saying today, I mean, it really hits home. I think about it as a physician. Yes, we have a team and we have staff, but we're all of us sitting here are not. It's not like we are also vulnerable potentially to some of these things that we're talking about, things that can be detriments to our overall well-being. So let me ask a question. I'm going to ask this question to Mario. Mario, when you think of like things that positive characteristics that affect an employee's well-being, what are some positive traits? So like, what are you looking for when you're looking for resources and support for employees? You mentioned connectedness earlier. What are some other kind of characteristics you're looking at?
That helps an employee be healthy.
Yes.
An employee. So my brain goes to first understanding what that person is looking to get out of the opportunity. Because I think first and foremost, a lot of times we hire people or we engage people into situations that weren't necessarily the right fit for them. So no matter how many great programs you have, if the opportunity in itself isn't right, that's going to be a challenge. But beyond that, Papa's Group is looking to do some creative things. We have a program, we call it the stress account, where we allot a certain amount of dollars and we give a long list of ways that they can use those dollars. Whatever relieves stress for you. You want to go to a ball game, you want to get your nails done, get a massage, join a gym. It's a long list of things, and it gives the employees the freedom of choice to select what's best for them. I think what it comes down to is that a lot of the most positive things today is to give people that freedom of choice. So whether that's that program I just mentioned or the flexibility to work from home, a lot of the talented folks that we've been able to retain lately has been greatly due to our flexibility and understanding that if a kid has a runny nose and they can't go to the daycare, we don't want them to feel overwhelmed and that we're going to be disappointed that they may need to work from home that day. Or maybe there's a good friend that's getting married or something, and they want to be able to, leave out a little bit early to get ahead of some traffic or something, for the weekend. We like to hear about those stories. We like to hear about the total engagement of the entire person, about their family and their friends and accomplishments. Mom is going out of town and she needs you to come by and feed the dogs. Go, take care of it. That we celebrate that. And by celebrating that, I think that increases the loyalty and the connection overall.
I think some of those things that you just mentioned can really be utilized across different industries. One of the things we struggle with in a medical office setting are those kind of things. Like we don't, it's hard to, well, I'm an employed physician, so, we have to stick to the corporation, the hospital. Maybe it's different if I was a private practice, have my own practice. But you mentioned like having a fund set aside for things like that, little things. We always talk about in the medical world, and some systems are actually doing it. So Stanford University, their medical center, has really pioneered, at least from physician engagement, to address burnout, where they have a pot of money that can be used to get meal delivery to your home, or they can have somebody clean your house when you're gone. But little things that can help you on the back end, so you can still stay focused on what you're doing, and that's taking care of people. And really, we're all taking care of people. We just do it a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
You know, Allstate, Papa's Group, Lindos, you guys are all taking care of people. You're investing in your employees, and just like how I invest in my patients' health, and I want them to be well. So, but we need to figure out how can we find out how to fund this from our medical group standpoint. It's something that we're looking at. But at least the Stanford, how they fund theirs, by the way, is they have wealthy benefactors that can supply almost an unlimited budget of funds for doctors to use for burnout. All right, let me ask the next question to Katie. So, Katie, tell me about, just like, we hear about team, when you're team-based, we're going to do team-based stuff in the corporate setting with our team. But what if the relationships within the team itself are not as stellar as they want to be? Maybe you have somebody who you have a lot of, I don't want to say click, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and just say clicky. Sure. And sometimes you can have the clicks that happen, that form on the work front, where it might not be overall well for the team. But how do we address that kind of stuff with team-based initiatives?
Mm-hmm. I think the first part is that communication piece and being very transparent. So it's not effective if you have team meetings every month, but you don't really talk about the team culture or communicate what's going on. So being able to have honesty, stick to those qualities, stick to having tough conversations, but doing it in a way that preserves that respect. So a lot of what I work with individuals is, how do we have effective interpersonal communication? And those same skills can be used within a team atmosphere. The first part is really understanding what your own individual values are, even coming up with a values list of what your organization, what your group is, even what your team is within an organization is, and then kind of refer back to that. Use that as that North Star, that guiding light. I think another big part in that, when you have maybe clickiness or culture, is because people aren't feeling included. And when people are looking for inclusivity, we're human beings, we're herd animals. We want to be part of that group. So if it feels like this isn't a place we can be vulnerable and be safe and be part of that group, that's when you kind of start seeing that, the very middle school clickiness. So a big thing for that is empathy and validation. So validation within a team, I think, can be one of the most powerful tools when you're able to look at someone having an experience and saying, I don't really think I'd have the same emotional experience, but what you're experiencing is real and it's valid and it's true to you, and that's okay. That can just open up so many different things, instead of saying what you're doing is wrong, this is wrong, and kind of focusing on the negative. And when we focus on things that aren't working right, it really isn't that effective. So really trying to reframe that and see, hey, even that sandwich idea, like a positive, a criticism, and then a positive, can be really effective practice. So I don't know if I have a specific strategy that I could kind of lay out and start working on, but I feel like just coming back to the basics, like, how do we as people kind of improve our own relationships and effectiveness, sticking to our values, really being transparent with ourselves and kind of being honest when something's not working, and then focusing on that solution-based kind of care and treatment model.
Sometimes when I'm telling stories from patients that have told me things over the years, sometimes people are afraid to speak up. And say they might feel like they're on the wrong end of maybe a clique on a team, but they're afraid to say something for fear of retribution or for fear of punishment. Yeah. How do you overcome that, Mario? What's your thoughts on if you get into that kind of situation?
That's a great question. And one of the things that I take pride in, and the culture that we're building, we take pride in, is an environment where people can be very outspoken and direct about what they feel and what they see. If they see a problem, to be able to speak out about it. If I take it personal that if somebody feels that way, that there's going to be some retribution, there's a problem that we as an organization, we need to fix it, because we've either set that culture that has made them feel that way, or they may have a specific leader that is making them feel that way. So I look at that more as a direct reflection of me and my team and our leadership. If it's somebody that is just maybe naturally wired that way, I can't get into the specifics of maybe why they showed up that way, but that may be another situation we'd have to deal with there. And that's where we want to, really make sure that they are, bought into the culture. And what I notice is that if they are not speaking out in the first 30, 60, 90 days about what they can bring to the table, about what they learned from previous experiences, and what value they're going to offer to make us better every day, then that's showing signs that they're not ready to add value for a different reason, perhaps. So I think it's a big picture you gotta look at. But we're very big on that. They have to add value day one.
That's well said. Now, I think about some of the health. Again, this is being a medical show. I still think about some of the positive things that can happen when you have great relationships. I mean, just feeling valued, as we talked about. Feeling just happy to go to work and say, well, if you really, really enjoy your job, what you're doing, and you believe it, it's not really work. Now it's still work, but you get so much more added to it. You get that personal growth, you get the professional growth, and you get opportunities that may come down the road for career advancement and that kind of things, and then benefits that are part of things too. So I think about the happy stuff, and then when I see happy in the clinical setting, I see blood pressure's back under control, the workload got resolved, so your blood pressure's good, weight's coming down again. So we think about just the enjoyment, and then that can spill over into on the home front and things like that. But speaking on the home front, Susie, why don't you tell us a little bit more about, like, I mean, certainly we've made the transition where a lot of companies, you're now no longer really sometimes at the brick and mortars store or organization, and employees are allowing some flexibility to do work at home. Is this a trend that's going to keep continuing, or are you still going to see people having to go to the actual office?
Right. So from everything we're seeing that there is a lot more flexibility, and so there's a lot more ability to work from home, work flexibility, more on making sure the work gets done than you must be physically in the office. However, we're also seeing trends and write-ups where there will always be some level of brick and mortar for two reasons. One, a lot of the companies who started this early have had results early as well that show that people want that community. They sometimes want to go in, and as was already said, we're we love the herd, and so we want to be able to have a sense of belonging. So it might look different how we create those senses, those times of belonging, but that will always be there. I also agree a lot with what Mario said and where he was leading. I think a lot of what can create an employee's health in relationships is their own initiative. And I know that can sound harsh. I think we all have faced that when somebody's coming in really reporting to you all the problems they're having. It's really hard to sometimes say, okay, what can you do about it? Because they're feeling so defeated. But I really, really, really believe in that. Whether it's, you said we're all also employees. So, if I'm feeling kind of on the fringe, what is it I can do what could I bake that brings something to the team? Or if there's something I'm wondering, how do I, initiate the conversation, or how do I invite the team to do something, or how do I volunteer for an activity? And so I think it's important that an employee takes some level of initiative. We've also seen on my psychology hat that just helps people with their well-being. A person that goes from hopelessness to hope-filledness and taking initiative just does healthy. They are healthier because they feel like they have some mastery over their universe versus, oh, I've got to go to work and nobody likes me and I'm on the outside and I don't know anyone. If you sit waiting for the company to make you happy, you're going to maintain unhappiness, even if the company has lots of things, because that's a mindset. If you say, even if the company has nothing, my company can't even afford benefits for me, then what is it you can bring that would be fun? What idea, what thought, or what could you initiate that would create something? If you want it and it would make you happy, it would probably make others happy. Don't wait for it to happen. See how you could make it happen.
I like the happy part because I always think of ways to kind of brighten up our day, certainly. And yes, we're high-fiving all the time around our office. I mean, it's a medical office, so you can only have so much kind of fun. Maybe in a corporate world, you guys can do more things. You see these kind of images sometimes of people having skateboard parks inside their corporation, or maybe that's out on the West Coast. But tell me about something like, maybe I'll start with Mario. Tell me about some like new ways that employers are trying to reinvent the wheel to make the environment more welcoming. Maybe even certainly it's got to be uplifting. You don't want it to be a downer, but uplifting, fun, engaging. What are some ways that organizations are doing things now?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say is listen to your new hires. Listen to them, especially this new generation that's coming in. They've got a lot of creative ideas. And if we're just willing to listen to them with what some of their expectations of fun and excitement and opportunity looks like, we can learn a lot. So we've done everything from the bucket challenge together to that was
nice. I did not know you guys did a bucket challenge. That's pretty cool. I don't know if we can pull that off in the medical practice, but yeah, please tell more.
Yeah. We I don't know if all this stuff is always the best practice for organization. But if you walk away from your computer and you didn't lock it, somebody will go in and send an email on your behalf to the whole company to create some laughs and jokes. That gets really fun and interesting. But we just really keep a very open and fun culture. And we a lot of our fun also is through community service, aligning with organizations in our local markets that believe what we believe and centered around kids and that have been disenfranchised. And so we, like to go out and play kickball with them. And it's just amazing how engaging the employees, get around some of those activities. So we think of something new all the time. And it has a lot to do with our new team members that keep coming in and feeding us.
When I was a resident at Loyola, we organized a dodgeball team and entered a Chicago league. And now, again, you can imagine you got a whole bunch of physicians. And physicians, generally speaking, are not athletic. Let's just go ahead and put it out there. And so you got a whole bunch of, we're book smart. It's all good. But we formed the dodgeball league team to kind of keep morale going, because you're going through residency, you're working, many hours a week, and it's just tough. And so we formed the dodgeball team, and I can say on the air that we finished dead last in the Chicago Dodgeball League. I think it was 2005 or 2006, but not surprising because you have a group of residents really with not really much athletic talent. But it was fun. And it's like, those are the things that I want to, if you have that moment, use that moment as a catalyst for the next moment. You want to explain a little bit more about how we can, Susie, about how we can take some of those past experiences and shape them into present opportunities?
Sure. And I would say also some of the other innovative things companies are doing. There's now a job called culture expert. So a lot of the new, a lot of the new innovative companies. So Allstate has certain pockets of our pockets, like we are in the Merchandise Mart. So our office in the Merchandise Mart is an innovative lab. So we actually have a culture team that just focuses on how do you create the culture, because at first it was listen to the new people, then it was the young people, but you also have people who might be 50 plus. So you have the video games, you have the ping pong tables, you have the popcorn, but then you might also have something else, because they're constantly engaging with what do people need in that culture. So that's just something else that's innovative, is people actually just focused on that. Learning from the past to the new, I would say for us, again, having employee resource groups. So whatever type of work you're in, allowing people to get together. I think sometimes companies are afraid that if it's a group of men or a group of women, for us, we don't allow there to be exclusivity. So anything that's an actual employee resource group cannot only have its own people. So the women's group actually has men as allies. The African American group wants there to be non-African Americans, because each group also realizes the validity and the importance of others learning from them and them learning from others. So I think that I would encourage people to find ways to create groups of people that might have things in common that don't do the same work. So they're also able to exchange work ideas. And to your point, bring things that, what has worked in the past? What are we looking at now? We just came back from a trip to our Irving, Texas office, where it's a very different type of office, of a very call-centric office, which is different from human resource work. So how do we help people who are working the mid shift when most of Allstate works a regular shift? How do we think about those people and what might they need? And part of it is ask the questions. The people will tell you what they need. So I think just asking employees, what might be one thing that would help your work space be more fun? I saw one of the things there, it's all cubes, but people are allowed plants. So it's funny that different people just created their own identity through the different plants they had.
No, that's wonderful. No, that's you made me think. I totally forgot about the people that work the non-traditional shifts. On their input is just as important as the traditional 9 to 5. Well, there's not really a traditional 9 to 5 anymore. But I forgot about that. That's super important to include them.
Right, and how we meet those needs, because you're not going to necessarily find a speaker who will speak from midnight in the morning. But how do you record it? How do you engage them in ways that are helpful?
Katie, why don't you tell me a little bit about some of the when you hear success stories with people that may have had a challenging situation at work, and then just what they come in and tell you about. I know there's probably a million stories you can tell that bring a smile to your face, but how do you know when somebody's really making good progress?
I think it all comes back to really that sense of I have power again. When you see a client who's really being successful, whether it's within their work life, whether it's at home, it's because they feel like, okay, here's where I have control again. Here's what I can change, and I'm doing something productive. Going back to the idea of the helplessness that comes with burnout, I kind of like Lisa was saying, like when you can kind of be the one who's directing that and looking for those resources, here they all are. And now I've kind of figured out how I can apply myself to these things. So if we kind of work on this concept of radical acceptance, where here's what you do have control over, here's what you don't have control over, and getting really stuck in the suffering that's associated with the focus on what you don't have control over really increases that sense of helplessness, hopelessness. So when you kind of look at, okay, what I do have control of in my work environment is my attitude and what my behaviors are. So if I kind of reframe those thoughts of, I can't control the overall culture right now. I can't control this, but I can control that I'm going to start hosting a bowling league in my team. And I can control that I'm going to reach out and email every Monday morning just to say hello to people. So those little touches can make the work environment a lot more friendly, a lot more fun, but it doesn't have to involve reinventing the wheel, rehauling a whole system, and it gives you some control as well. So when you kind of help people individually identify what they can do and then kind of put that out there into the world, it really takes away a lot of that feeling of, well, what's the point?
Well, you definitely talk about really setting that tone. We all have the opportunity. Again, it doesn't matter if you're at the top of the chain or at the bottom of the chain. I mean, we all have an opportunity. Going back to a lot of themes, we can really, the actions speak louder than words that we can do. So we got about 5 minutes left, guys. So what I want to do is kind of wrap this up. And what I kind of do in a medical standpoint, we close down with our visits with our patients. We call it the assessment and plan. We kind of talk about how we really kind of take home some of the points of the day. So what I want to do is kind of have our assessment and plan / final thoughts section. So I'm going to start with Katie. And Katie, why don't you just kind of give us a few take home points on just what it takes to be successful with fostering healthy work relationships.
I think the big things I think about is that validation piece they talked about. So recognizing that just as we're dimensional people, so are other individuals on our team. And when you can recognize that people usually aren't doing things very maliciously to try and hurt us, but they're kind of struggling with their own things and trying to meet their own needs, you can really provide that empathy, have that validation, and make that connection. Also, that comes to communication. Talk about what's not working. Talk about what is working. And I think, Susie, you really talked about that a lot and how important that can be to just speak up. So if we're able to have both that empathy, that validation, and that communication, it can be really effective in kind of fostering a work environment that you want to go to every day.
Excellent. Thank you. Mario, final thoughts?
Yes. I'll say be your authentic self. Just be really true to who you are and what your desires are, your goals, all your ambitious thoughts. Be willing to share them. Just being your authentic self is one thing. Be willing to extend trust to other people. I think a lot of times in the workplace, we want to have these healthy relationships, but we're not really willing to extend trust, but yet we want it back. So that's a mindset shift up in and of itself. And then last I'll say is be willing to give more than you take. Sometimes we show up and like, what are you going to give me today? What are you going to do? But we're not willing to give. Don't get me wrong. I have an expectation that I'm going to get a lot.
Yeah, I got to get something back in return a little bit. Give me something.
But I approach relationships with what can I offer? What can I give? And I'm trusting my environment and my colleagues, my friends, my clients, that they're thinking the same way about me. So if you have the right ecosystem in place, I think you'll be all good.
Excellent. Dr. Best, final thoughts?
Take advantage of what your company does offer, for sure. Don't let it sit on the table. Take initiative. And then the last one is the platinum rule. The golden rule is do to others what they would have you, what you would want done. But the platinum rule is do unto others as they would want done to them. And I think that what that says is you've got to get to know your coworkers. So, yes, bring your authentic self to work, but genuinely take interest in the people that you're working with and in other people you don't necessarily work with, the people, if you have a cafeteria, with your cafeteria person, with the person who greets you every morning. Just take a genuine interest in people, because I think there's a huge amount of give back when you actually treat people the way they want to be treated. The energy you're putting out there comes back to you tenfold.
Excellent. Thank you. And my final thoughts are really the following. I think at the end of the day, we have to make these relationships work, because we all want to be successful. We all want our organizations to be successful, but we all want to do good. I mean, there's still a lot of good people in this world, and we want to do things. We want to be productive for our communities. We want to engage and teach our kids life lessons. We want to have environments at work where there is trust and there's mutual respect, and employers and employees can see eye to eye on a lot of things. They come up with ideas and solutions together, not just one-sided. And that inclusivity gives so much opportunity for that overall success of the organization.
Absolutely.
So thank you to my guests today. Just been a great discussion today.
Thank
We
you.
have Dr.
Mike.
Susie
Yes.
Best. Thank you very much for coming out. We got Mr.
Honor.
Mario
Pleasure.
Lambert
Yes, sir.
and Katie O'Donnell.
Thank
Just
you.
thanks for coming on the show again. We just thank you so much. So again, this has been a great show today, and I hope everybody out there took home some great points. I want to thank my platinum level sponsor, Phillips Eye Center. Thank you again for supporting the show. Next week, we're going to be talking about Cancer Sucks. It really does. That's going to be my new series. It's going to be called Cancer Sucks series. So for the month of August, we're going to break down a different kind of cancer each week. We're going to be doing part 1 of the Cancer Sucks series next week, called colorectal cancer. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Again, it's me, Dr. G. Check me out on my website, www.drmarkgomez.com. And this has been another great episode of To Your Health with Dr. G. Peace out.